Off-White became the hottest luxury brand in the world without ever inventing a single new product. They just took existing designs, made minimal changes, and conceived an entire generation that these were the most important pieces of clothing on the planet. This happened because of one of the most calculated brand voice strategies in modern fashion history. Most brands struggle with the same problem you're probably facing right now. They have passionate fans, but they can't turn those fans into real community. But Off-White solved this before they even released their first collection. They engineered their brand voice so precisely that by the time their clothes hit the market, people were already obsessed with what the brand represented. No luck involved, no accidental hype, pure strategy. When Virgil named his brand Off-White in 2013, he picked more than a color. He defined an entirely new market position that would revolutionize how luxury brands think about their identity. We need to think about traditional luxury fashion for a second. You had streetwear brands like Supreme and Stussy on one side. Then you had the upper class high-end luxury houses like Chanel and Louis Vuitton on the other. What made Off-White concept special was it positioned itself between them. Right in the middle, it was not streetwear and it was not traditional luxury. It was completely new. It allowed Off-White to borrow elements from both worlds without being brought down by either one of them. As Virgil explained, he was defining a gray area between things that weren't necessarily opposites: street and high fashion, hype and credibility, men and women. The visual identity of the brand immediately reflected the positioning. Those diagonal stripes that became Off-White's signature were inspired by hazard type and industrial safety signs. These stripes appeared across every collection, creating a visual language that was simultaneously street level and architecturally sophisticated. He said those diagonal lines helped him solve a huge issue, which was how to take a bunch of random things and let them be one. That's the mindset of Helvetica. This positioning gave people who purchased the brand permission to exist in multiple spaces simultaneously. You could be into high fashion and you could be into street culture at the same damn time. You didn't have to choose sides, and this resonated deeply with a generation that refused to be put in traditional categories or box. The brand name itself became a metaphor for this entire philosophy. Off-White sat somewhere in between, not quite white, not quite another color. This puzzle became a strength, allowing the brand to evolve and adapt while maintaining its core identity. It created a position in the market that was uniquely his, and competitors found it impossible to replicate because they were already positioned in one camp or the other. But Off-White's positioning strategy would have meant nothing without the right attitude to back it up. This is where Virgil's genius really showed. He created a brand with a clear philosophy about how to connect with culture. Off-White's core attitude was built around mixing street culture with high-end design, but they weren't trying to sound rich. They were trying to sound like they understood the culture. There's a massive difference between these two approaches, and this difference determines whether you build a community or just attract customers. Traditional luxury brands spoke down to their customers. Off-White flipped this completely. They spoke to their customers as equals, as people who were part of the same cultural conversation. Virgil understood that for young consumers, cultural relevance was a new luxury. This philosophy was perfectly captured on Virgil's most famous quote, which was, "Everything I do is for the 17-year-old version of myself." This guided every decision. The brand connected deeply with Gen Z and young millennials because it understood how they thought between identity and authenticity. These generations grew up with remix culture, with the internet, with the ideal that creativity comes from combining existing elements in new ways. Off-White's entire approach reflected this worldview. They celebrated what Virgil called the fine art of sampling. It's like flipping samples, taking pieces of different cultures and turning them into something new. Off-White's attitude also empowered people in a way that traditional luxury brands could never. Instead of making customers feel like they were buying into something exclusive and intimidating, Off-White made them feel like they were part of something important and intelligent. The brand's voice consistently communicated that if you got it, you were smart enough to be a part of the conversation. Real quick, if your brand's solid but people still ain't really seeing it like they should, whether it's between drops, after drops, or when you're just trying to stay in motion, we need to talk. We help brands stay visible, get talked about, and build reputation the right way through people, not algorithms. algorithms. I call it community strategy meets execution. We find the right people for your brand, show up where they're at, and make sure they see you, not just once, not just for a post, but consistently. So when it's time for a pop-up shop or drop, your name's already familiar. More eyes, more conversations, more recognition. That's how you build momentum. That's what we do. We're only taking on 4 brands per quarter. If you're serious about getting seen, tap the link below and apply for the waiting list today. In terms of brand voice and tone, the brand's voice was edgy enough to feel rebellious, intellectual enough to feel sophisticated, and ironic enough to feel self-aware. This combination created a tone that was like having a conversation with the coolest, smartest friends you knew. Someone who's clearly in on the joke but doesn't act superior about it. The most famous example of this voice in action was Off-White's use of quotation marks around simple words. They would take everyday objects and label them with quotation marks. Shoelaces, sculpture, for walking. This went way beyond design quirks. These were philosophical statements about the nature of fashion and consumption. As Virgil explained, you can use typography and wording to completely change the perception of a thing without changing anything about it. If I take a men's sweatshirt and write woman on its back, that's art. The quotation mark created what he called ironic detachment, a way of participating in fashion's culture while simultaneously questioning it. And you know what? This approach was heavily influenced by his background in architecture. This architectural training gave Off-White's voice a theoretical foundation that felt academic yet authentic to the streets. It was like intellectual without being fake, conceptual without being isolated. The voice stood out because it was completely different from how traditional luxury brands communicated. Where traditional luxury was cold or flashy, Off-White was warm and more clever. Where traditional luxury emphasized heritage and exclusivity, Off-White emphasized ideals and inclusivity. Where traditional luxury spoke at people, Off-White actually spoke with the people. Again, the brand never talked down to people or over-explained the joke. It trusted that if you got it, you got it. If you didn't get it, that was okay too, but you probably weren't part of the community anyway. Most brands create product first, then figure out how to tell stories about them. Off-White flipped this completely. Virgil treated Off-White like a storytelling platform that happened to make clothes rather than a fashion label that had to sell stories. Each collection had a backstory, theme, or cultural concept that was fully developed before any design work actually began. This went beyond having a creative direction. It ensured that every product was part of a larger narrative that gave it meaning and context. Take the Blue Collar collection from Spring/Summer 2016. The theme was about class division and working class identity. He created patchwork shirts using actual Royal Mail and DHL uniforms, complete with pin badges reading working class. The collection made a statement about labor, class, and who gets to participate in luxury fashion. The Natural Woman collection from Spring to Summer 2018 paid tribute to Princess Diana, reinterpreting her iconic wardrobe. Clutch bags were adorned with magazine names showing Diana's life. This approach was revolutionary. Instead of buying clothes because they look good or fit well, people bought Off-White because they wanted to be part of the stories the brand was telling. The storytelling defines the products, not the other way around. Virgil explained that he made up themes for each collection based on current times. Each season was a response to something happening inside the world. There was always an element of storytelling that went beyond just making clothes people might want to wear. Off-White's messaging and strategy went beyond individual creative decisions. They created comprehensive language systems that could be applied across every touchpoint. The foundation of this system was built around specific visual and verbal elements that worked together to create a distinctive brand voice. The diagonal stripes on its logo served as a unifying visual element that could be applied to any product or communication. They solved what Virgil called a huge issue: how to take a bunch of random things and let them be one. This visual consistency created immediate brand recognition, and then he turned language itself into a brand element. Words like for walking, product bag, air, and business casual became part of a consistent vocabulary that appeared across products, packaging, and communications. This created a language system that reinforced the brand's philosophical position. Nike Off-White V10 collaboration from 2017 is the perfect case study of what happens when a brand's voice isn't just consistent but electric. Every part of Off-White's personality came through loud and clear, and the result, cultural impact on a massive scale. They added Off-White's signature attitude. That's it. The changes were minimal, but the storytelling maximum, and that's the source. Virgil's 3% rule changed just enough to make it yours, and that's exactly what he did. For example, air on the midsole, shoelaces on the laces, and suddenly you were just looking at a sneaker. You were questioning what a sneaker actually is. It turned design into dialogue. And then there were the red zip tie. Simple, industrial, and unmistakably Off-White. It wasn't just a tag, it was a statement. One that said, this isn't just a product, it's a point of view. That's how you build emotional engagement, by letting people feel like they're a part of the story. Even the packaging played along, raw, industrial, unpolished. But behind that roughness was razor sharp intention. Everything was thoughtful. Everything meant something. What made the 10 so groundbreaking was how self-aware it felt. Like the shoes were in on the joke, peeling themselves apart to show you how they were made. Exposed foam, off-center swooshes, visible stitching, it was all meta. That's where the real lesson is. Off-White didn't just design shoes. They built a world. Smart, ironic, emotional, and every detail of this drop stayed true to it. And the result, these weren't just sneakers. They were cultural artifacts, conversation starters, symbols. It proved that brand voice isn't just about how you sound, it's about how you see. And when your voice is clear, bold, and consistent, you can take something totally familiar, a product people have seen 1,000 times, and make it feel brand new. Off-White didn't win because they made better shoes. They won because they told a better story. This collab showed that when your voice is strong, you don't have to change who you are to collaborate. Just bring your perspective and let it shine. And honestly, that's liberating. Voice and messaging can make even the most familiar product feel completely new. And that is the power of brand storytelling done right. Alright, y'all. This is Lee from North Studios. Till next time, I'm out of here. Peace.